I realized there's certain things that give energy, right? And certain things that take energy in our days. And I realized that meeting with small business owners and really digging in and pouring into helping them build their business, building financial wealth and how they structure it and their business and their processes really gave me energy. And so really did a lot of evaluation and soul searching and came up with that I wanted to give my parents a year notice to quit the family business and then launch a professional service division for the Kim Group, where we launched Developer for Fee.
Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this.
All right, my Small Steps, Big Wins family, welcome back to another action-packed Small Steps, Big Wins episode. I'd like to welcome Katie Kim to the podcast today. Katie has spent the last 30 years transforming underutilized urban spaces into impactful community-enhancing developments. This is pretty cool. She has used real estate to fuel her passion for having a deep impact in communities and creating financial freedom. And we're going to go down all those avenues today and the mindset behind it as well. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sue. I'm so excited to be here.
So let's start with an overview of the events in your life that brought you to where you are today.
Oh, I mean, I feel like everything always builds upon it, even though if we may not know it in the moment, right? So, really brief, growing up in a construction development real estate family, I was just immersed in different things and watching, again, family owned. I was in a lot of the meetings with my parents, with the clients and stuff like that. And to watch them help small business owners kind of really build their dreams, literally and figuratively. And I loved it, and I kind of just absorbed it. But as a lot of kids do, right? We don't want to take over the family business. We want to spread our wings. And I went to college. I actually got my master's in computer science, and I went to work for a technical company, Accenture, or their consulting company. But I went in their R&D department, Accenture Tech Labs. And as fast as I can tell you, I'd work with technology 3 to 5 years to market for Fortune 500 companies and find strategic profitable solutions and then implement them.
Wow.
And so I loved it because it was always looking at like solving a problem and taking a different angle and what are the strategies involved with it. And I got to work all over the world. It was wonderful. It was a great experience. And then I was looking for a shift after a while. I went to work for a startup company that then eventually got bought out by Oracle. And so I was like, I don't know if I want to go back into the big corporate machine, if you will. And so then my parents at that time were like, would you want to come back and, buy the family business? And I was like, no, I don't want to leave Chicago. I love this. And I had started investing in real estate as soon as I graduated college, and just kind of a property a year, incremental. But I said, yeah, let's explore this. And so with my husband at the time, he's still my husband, but at the time we talked about like, what does our future hold? What do we want to do? That strategy point in your life where you're like, okay, we're about to have kids. How is that going to change things and go that way? And we decided to do it. We moved a little downstate and took over the family business. We ran it for 12 years. And then I realized I wasn't fulfilled. And I realized like my 20s was all about learning what I like, learning what different opportunities there are. And then I really wanted to focus on my passion in my 30s and be fulfilled. And so I realized there's certain things that give energy, right? And certain things that take energy in our days. And I realized that meeting with small business owners and really digging in and pouring into helping them build their business, building financial wealth and how they structure it and their business and their processes really gave me energy. And so really did a lot of evaluation and soul searching and came up with that I wanted to give my parents a year notice to quit the family business and then launch a professional service division for the Kim Group, where we launched Developer for Fee, where we not only help the businesses structure for a development, but we help them structure their business to go to that next level or levels. And how do you actually look at like your operations beyond the four walls that you're doing? And then also look at, how do you pass that on to either a successor or to generations, both, coming after you. So really poured into that, and then recently launched an educational platform and community to be able to do that for more. Because God has a way of knocking and pushing you to do what his plans are. And this past summer, he's like, Katie, I've been putting this on your heart more. I need you to help more. And
Wow.
so we just launched our beta group. We're going to launch the full academy. We're keeping it small because there's so much of my personal time into it. I really want to be able to meet people where they're at and build it. So yeah, so I'm really excited about that. And I've realized, to your question, that every step along that journey has really developed my knowledge, my skill set, and my processes to where I'm at now. Like I've worked in the big corporate, I've worked for a startup and then
Mm.
sold it. I've worked for a family company, I've worked for my own company, and really have those different dynamics of putting the emotion out of the business and then putting it into the business too. And so I really am looking to bring that passion and all that experience.
So you're leveraging all that 30 years of experience across the board to bring you to where you are today. That's fascinating when you think about it, that you started small, that there's growth, that there was just that one job and how one job layered on top of another. Talk about the mindset behind growing from something small to something big. What was that journey like? And did you struggle with imposter syndrome along the way? Did you struggle with, failure? Mind blocks? How did you grow from where you were to where you are?
Yes, yes, and yes, all that, right? I mean,
Yeah, I
I
know
have
it's a big
tons of
question.
scars, right? That could be just your scars can be a whole different thing. Yeah, so I've learned, like, I am a thirsty for knowledge all the time. Like, I always want to know, like, how things work, how they succeed. I always love a good failure story over a good success story. Like, I'll cheer you on, yes, but I'm like, I want to know your scars, right? Like, I want to know what's holding you back, what's going. And so, one of the things I always say is like one of the most dangerous things we give our community is a library card. Like
Mm,
you can go to the library and you can learn anything and you can get audiobooks and now you can even check it out virtually, right? And so, when you talk about those failures along the way, every time I failed, I was like, okay, somebody has had to have done this and gone through this before. Who, what, where, when, why, how. And I call it my invitation to the growth party. And so I
that
do that literally. There's actually a video I finally just launched it on YouTube. I'm like, for all you New Year's people, I'm a word of the year person, but like invite yourself to the growth party. Like what's holding you back? Like, do you have your calendar aligned with where you want to go, your
mm,
goals? Are you feeding yourself? Are you looking at your E to E ratio, your entertainment to your education? How are you building upon it? One of the things I always do with people that tell me, especially my friends, that like, hey, I'm going to start my own business. I'm like, okay, great, let's go grab lunch or grab a beer. I want to tell you the crab story. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I want to tell you the crab story. And it was when I was reading, I learned about it. And it's like National Geographic did this study a long, long time ago about like when you go crab fishing, right? You throw the basket, which is just has a hole in the top, into the ocean, and there's food in there that's tight on a screen. The crabs crawl in,
mhm.
eat the food, but they never crawl out. And there's no trap door, there's no maze. And so they found that if a crab starts to climb out, that another crab will pull it down.
Mm.
If it tries a second time, it'll pull it down and break its leg. If it tries for a
Oh.
third time, it'll pull it down and it'll kill it. And it got me thinking when I was listening to this story was like, that's our animal instinct, right? Is
Mm,
people want to keep you in the box. They want to keep you with the status quo of what's going on and the again the process that's known, where if you're looking, for those big wins, those big possibilities, those big opportunities, you got to start taking those small steps to climb out the box, right? And it's people pulling you down. And
mhm,
I always tell them in when we have lunch or when I'm telling the story is you're not going to know who your crabs are that are going to pull you down. And it's
mm,
really going to surprise you who they are when they do. So I want you to have like, the new car syndrome, right? Where you like buy a new car and then you see it everywhere. I want you to have like your crab radar on because I don't want those to get into your head
mm.
because it could be, I mean, it may be your spouse, it may be a parent, it may be, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend. I mean, partner, it is going to be somebody that loves you because they
Yeah.
feel
They
in
want
their
to keep you
heart,
safe.
Yeah, they're
Yeah, they wanna keep
protecting
you safe.
you.
So what
Mhm.
is your advice to somebody when they identify the crab and it's somebody that's dear to them? You know, it could be the spouse, could be the really good friend, could be the parent, and you realize, "Oh god, they're the crab."
Yeah. So, depending on who they are, it's you first and foremost, you have to be in alignment with what I call your time, talent, and treasure triangle. And knowing what you can do and what you can't do, because we only have a certain amount, finite amount of time, certain amount of money, certain amount of talent at that point in time. All those can grow, right, as you grow, but at any point in time, you only have so much. So when you're off,
Mm,
you're not going to be in alignment. And when you're not in alignment, we mentally search for approval that we're in alignment. And so, first and foremost, is take some time to kind of slow down, to speed up, get yourself in alignment and
mm,
understand like the real, like hardcore truth. And, I a lot of times go in the woods. I do a silent retreat with my prayer group every year and really focus on like, am I in alignment? Am I in alignment with God's plan, with what he wants me to do? Am I in alignment with my time, talent, and treasure? And then I think when you have that base, when you have that strong base, when those people come at you, when the crabs start to pull you and pull you down, you can easily, respond with, I hear you. I hear your scarcity, right? Because it is a scarcity mindset and you're
yeah,
going
mhm,
in with an abundant mindset, right? Like, and say, I hear what you're saying and I hear the love you have for me and I greatly appreciate that. I need to have your support in this growth. And if I fail, I fail. But if I fail, I need to know you're going to support me. And you may not need to know that they're going to support you, but
yeah,
but that's something you can ask for. And a lot of times when we ask for help along the way, there is a neurological change in people's makeup that says like, yes, I want to help you.
mhm,
What do you need? Who can I connect you with? And you kind of shift their thinking. Now, it doesn't mean they won't come back. That doesn't mean they won't pull you back down again or nip at you or something like that. But asking for help to take this step, to take this risk, to take this,
mhm,
again, small step to that big possibility, the big opportunity, it can help you put them on your team a little bit and really give you that grace that you need to know that it's okay to fall, it's okay to stumble, it's
mm.
okay to fail because nobody's perfect, I mean,
Giving
so that's really giving yourself permission
giving
too.
yourself permission, yeah, yeah. How do you help yourself
Hmm.
stay in a positive mindset when it does get hard? When
Oh,
you
that's
know your
that's
conviction, like, you know you're now in
yeah.
alignment, you've heard what God has for you, that thing you're running
Mhm.
after is the thing you should be running after, and along the way, you hit that challenge that makes you question the path that you're on. What do you do in those moments?
So for me, I do turn to prayer. We have an adoration chapel. I love it. I'm like addicted to it. But I also have a prayer group, my prayer warriors that I turn to, and having a safe space and a safe, I call it like the nucleus of friends, can help pull you through. And you got it. That's a really protective space. And I always tell people like you really have to be cautious because there's a lot of people that can't be like un like unintentional, unreserved in their cheering you on and support
Mhm,
because there's always a reservation that they have. So you got to be really protective. But the other part is to go back to, are you in alignment? Like, is this truly in alignment, or is this a step back that I need to go forward?
mm,
Because I look at every time I thought I was quote quote failing, it has given me a scar or an opportunity to learn that then I can pour into my clients. I can pour into my projects and say, okay, guys, I did this, and now yeah, I consider myself so young, but in my young age, I have so many experiences that people are like, oh, have you done everything? Have you developed everything? And I realized the other day, I'm like, I haven't developed a jail. That's probably the one thing I haven't developed yet. But I've been blessed with so many experiences and so
mm,
many scars and failures that I've had a really good support system every time. But
mhm,
education is always a thing, is always a foundation that has been in there. So it's how do you feed yourself in those moments, right?
mhm,
When you're down, when you fail, your hunger to learn and to get back up, how do you pour into yourself? Whether it's, just sometimes you just got to go through the motions to get back on track, to get,
Yeah.
a lot of people are experiencing burnout, right? And
Yeah.
nobody talks about the numb feeling of burnout afterwards, after you've kind of crashed. And then there's like this numb part
Hmm.
where you worry you're not going to be able to feel that energy and that excitement about something
Yeah.
again. And
Yeah.
how do you start doing those little tasks to build back in? It's like going to the gym, you
Yeah.
know, just
Yeah.
just go.
Yeah, the conviction in your voice that burnout has happened and it's real. I'm sure you've had it. And then what do you do to get yourself out of it? But you answered that question. I really want to point that out, that it's continuing to go through the motions even when you don't feel like it. It's the same thing. You
Hmm.
mentioned the gym. It's like, I don't really feel like going to the gym today, but it's something I do every day. So I'm going to go do that. I heard you mention alignment a couple of times. Am I
Hmm.
in alignment? That could be a really difficult question for some
Mm.
to start to answer. How about for you personally, when you ask yourself that question, how do you know when you're in alignment going down that path that you should be going down? Besides prayer, what are some other things you can do to discover that alignment?
Yes. So there's a great book, Good to Great, that it has this analogy in it, and from just a quick summary on the book, it's like it is a lot of research. So when you read it, you kind of gotta get through the research sometimes. But it compares like companies that did the same thing, and some are good and they went to
Mm,
great, right? And some just either failed or they stayed good. And it points out this one section. It talks about three different circles that you need to like put the three circles, make a list of like, what can you be the best in the world at? Right.
mm,
And list out all those things. The second one, what can I make money at? The third, what do I enjoy doing? What do I have passion doing? And then where those three circles intersect, it says where you need to focus your attention. And then they reference a hedgehog concept, which I think is the simplest, most complex concept to understand. And it goes into this question you ask is, every day in the woods, the hedgehog comes out of his home and the fox sees it and it's like, oh, I'm gonna get him, I'm gonna pounce, and it's all cunning and conniving. And the hedgehog does this like, oh, when the fox starts to attack, it's like, here we go again. And what it does is it rolls up into a simple ball and it just stays tight. And then the fox will, throw it around, beat it, try and open it up to eat it. And then eventually the fox gets worn out, moves on, the hedgehog opens up and goes on with his day. And I remember in the book thinking, well, that's easy. That's so easy. I'm like, I'm focused on this. I can do this. I can make money on this. Like, that's my hedgehog concept. And it would go on in the book to like companies spend months and years. And I'm like, why do you spend months and years on it? It's because the alignment runs deeper than that surface answer, right? The
oh, okay.
surface
Yeah.
answer is holding up on that ball, right? This is what everybody can see that I can do. This is what everybody's telling me I can do.
Mm,
But that third circle of like, what am I passionate about? And I remember somebody quoted Oprah once to me, and she said like 90% of any job is the grind, right? And you have to make sure that 10% is very, very passionate about what you
mhm,
do. And I think that helps you get and stay in alignment. Like, what am I passionate about doing?
mhm.
If money and time were not an option, what would I do day in, day out? Right. Like, my husband
Yeah.
always makes fun of when we go out to dinner with friends and people are like, if you won the lottery, what would you do? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I already know what Katie would do. She'd do more of what she's doing now. Like, and I
Yeah, but
would.
that's isn't that perfect though? Because it's a perfect blend
Mhm.
of what you love to do and you get paid doing it
Yeah.
as well. So let's talk a little bit about your passion. What are some things that you've done, the small steps that you've done to get you to where you are
Mhm.
today, and some of the things that you've accomplished?
Yeah, some of the small steps that it really helps free my mindset is
Mhm.
I got to know break even. And so I think that that's a big part of the scarcity mindset, because you either have a fear mindset or you have a faith mindset, right? Like I this is going to work out, all the stars are aligning for me, I have abundance in my life, I'm going, or like, what about this, what about that, oh my gosh, what if I fail, and you just like you turn and twist and you get in that
Mhm.
spiral. And I think for me, anytime I find myself spiraling, I go back to looking at numbers and being like, okay, right, that's my computer science education kicking in. Okay, where's my break even? Am I going to be able to feed my family? Am I going to pay my mortgage? And look
Mhm.
at that and then figure out what's the grace of my runway and kind of
Mhm.
say, okay, So if all that's taken care of financially, like that's good. I'm good over here. Now I have this urge, I have this desire, this passion to grow, to take on the new project. How much runway do I have?
Mm.
And if I only have a finite amount of runway, say 3 months or 6 months, what do I need to focus on and really get laser focused on rocking out and you go, this is why I was so excited, in a laser way, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get that project, that company, that whatever it is, profitable and or breaking even, so then I don't get in that spiral, downward of the fear. And so if you can start to then align that and say, okay, now I'm looking at my time, talent, treasure triangle, right? I have this much talent or treasure to get to my runway. What's the talent? Do I have it? Do I need somebody that has it? Do I need to get in a room with those people, right? And then it's a who do you need to know?
Right.
And it goes back to that growth invitation, right? Who, what, where, when, how. And then also when you look at your time, how much time am I going to dedicate to this every day? One of the things when we do lead generation, we bring on the real estate side, we bring on new agents. We start with stepping them into a 12-week program of growth. And, we start with making, 10 contacts a week, right? And we ramp all the way up to making 50. Well, when I was building my business, I was making 100 contacts a
Wow.
week. And so when people are overwhelmed, they're like, wait, what? I'm like, but think about that, guys. Like 50 divided by 5, that's 10 new
And,
contacts a day.
right.
Like,
Right. It's
so,
not
so
much.
where's that at on you? No. And
No.
where's that at on your calendar? Right. And
Right.
and then being intentional about like who do you need in your network and what do they need to do and what do you need to know? You start to, I know there's a big buzzword around manifesting, right? But you start to manifest that success because it's the small steps, right? It's the compound effect. It's
Mhm.
if you if you eat under your calories per day, you're going to lose weight. If you eat over your calories per day, you're going to gain weight, right? So
Yeah.
same thing with your business or your opportunity you want to achieve is if you're doing the steps that you need to take or above them, right? You're going to succeed. And now it's just a
Mhm.
time thing. And the the way I drove this home with my son because we're a hockey family. They play hockey. I'm learning to play hockey. I don't call what I do play hockey, but we talk about the 300 to 3,000 rep rule, right? We're building a habit. And so my son is leveling up his hockey. He has a goal to get to prep school. And so we've outlined a plan with him, like skill set and what he needs to see. And
Mhm.
so, and he's really hard on himself. I hope I'm not genetically giving that to him,
Is he the
but
firstborn?
he
Yeah,
is.
it's a firstborn syndrome. I have one like that
Okay,
too.
good.
I have
Ooh, that
three.
makes me relax a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. That's the
but
first. Yeah, the first one's the overachiever. The second one's the party animal, and the third's the free spirit. So it's like, if my
psychology,
kids
yes.
ever listened to this, they would be laughing hysterically because I just described all three of them.
Because they'd be like, yeah, that's me,
Yeah,
mom.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
me.
it was
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You got it. Yeah, but we
Oh,
digress.
yeah.
But
So,
but you know what
yeah.
though, that drive, just to bounce off the digression for a minute, that
Mhm.
drive though can be is a good thing if used the right way, in a
Yeah.
positive direction to keep you from becoming complacent, to keep you from staying small. So,
Yeah. And in those reps, right?
mhm.
Like if you can break down, because there's some shot. I'm not going to do it justice. My husband's probably going to be like, Katie, it's this, and he can comment he put it in the comments. But he's working on this super hard shot, and I said, and he came back from a game that weekend. He's like, oh, I didn't do it, and I'm like, you're not ready yet. And he goes, what? And he was, I've been practicing. I'm like, how many reps have you done? And he told me, and I was like, you can't even expect yourself to have this show up until you've done 300, and you can't
Yeah.
even expect to even like with efficiency do it until 3,000. And so we mapped out like if he does so many reps each day, like when is the date he can start to see that showing up in his game.
Mm.
And I said, you don't get to complain until that day. And I said, and if you do more reps or less reps, see how it goes. And he goes, yeah. And I think we need to do the same thing with our businesses and when we're setting goals. If we're not hitting the amount of reps it takes to master or to even one develop the skill and then to master the skill, we
Mhm.
can't get hard on ourselves to until that day to have it show up. And so
Mhm.
it's a good kind of, it's the scale, right? We
Mhm.
can't look at the scale yet because it's not time.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I haven't really heard it explained that way before, where you don't get hard on yourself until after you've done all the reps. The
Mm-hmm.
natural inclination is to be hard on yourself in the beginning. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
get that right, didn't get right the first time, didn't get right the second. Geez, I'm never gonna get this right. Where you're reminding us that you've gotta do the thousandth rep. It's that kinda winning mentality. Let's circle back
Mm-hmm.
to your faith, because 'cause you've had that
Mm.
threaded in a little bit. What role
Yeah.
does faith play in what you do?
Oof. And I guess very hearing that question, it's everything, to be honest. I have found when I'm not in alignment with my faith, what God wants me to do, that it's just off. It doesn't
Mm,
feel right. It doesn't go well either. I mentioned the Development Academy, the Real Estate Development Academy. He's been putting that on my heart for about 5 years. I kept saying no. And he had, and we do this sometimes too. I clung to a partner, right? So, oh, okay, we'll do this together. And he's like, that's not what I meant. And so that opportunity did not go well.
yeah.
And I was heartbroken in that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like let me reflect. I always look at the scars, right? And like, how do we reflect? How do I build and get better? And it was like the partner was not in alignment with me. They were
Mm,
not a faith-based person. They wanted to use my skill set for something else, but not grow in the way that they were telling me they wanted to
mm,
grow and how to develop. And so
mm,
I think with that, it's making sure that again that I'm in alignment. Like even when we take on new projects,
mhm,
is this what we want to be doing? Is this what we want to be focusing on? Because I pour everything into my clients and the community and really I got to know that that's a safe space for me.
right.
And that's where I've learned to trust my guts, which I think is my sixth sense, is AKA my faith. Some people call it different things beyond that, but
Gotcha.
is if I'm not trusting my gut and where we're going and I get out of alignment and then it's all off and really it has to be that foundation. And so that's really what motivated me to leave my family business because
Mm,
there's a lot of guilt with that, right? There's a lot of, oh my gosh, like what are my parents going to do? I'm supposed to take this over, and I had to work through that as well. But also, I felt very called to to launch the developer for fee because there's so many small businesses and business owners coming in that are like, we need to expand our operations, but
mm,
we only have either money to expand the operations or expand the building. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you have a great product. Like this shouldn't be a push pull. You should be able to do both. Again, God got me educating myself into like economic incentives and how do you stack these deals and how do you build a
wow.
financially viable structure for businesses, all that compound effect and that ripple.
Yeah.
And that's where he's really called me and to lean into that. And I find anytime I take a project that I don't really discern is an alignment for me, it ends up pushing and pulling me
Mm,
and energy taking, if to say that. Like it
mhm,
takes more energy than a project should. So when you're in those tough times, having a team that knows your faith and knows where your heart is and can have your back, because that's a big thing too, is especially as a developer, you get targeted a lot and misunderstood a lot. And so to have your team have your back and be like, no, no, that's not Katie's heart, or that's not
mm.
what she meant,
Wow.
and really back your integrity in a sense. Like
Yeah, that's great. That's huge.
means the world.
That's
It's
yeah,
everything. I mean,
yeah,
I'm getting a little choked up because I think of the people that have where they're
yeah,
standing up for you in rooms that you're not in, but for being in alignment and being that person of character, they wouldn't be able to do that. And
yeah.
so I think that helps you stay on the path of growth and
Mm.
And that's
Yeah.
actually, that's my word of the year is last year I did growth with, it was all
Mhm.
lowercase.
Yeah.
And then this year it's all in caps because one of the things I learned is that in Genesis in the Bible, when the Lord is all in caps, it's where the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit were all together.
Mhm.
So that is really how I want my growth, my company for
Mm.
2025 to be is all in alignment, is really in that.
I hear you talk a
Yeah.
lot about businesses and helping businesses grow and assisting others.
Mhm.
It sounds almost like a troubleshooting COO kind of role where you're going in there and you're looking to find these problems and help. What's one thing
Mhm.
that you thought would be hard about assisting and doing what you're doing, growing things big, but it turned out that it really wasn't? And flip it. What's one thing that you thought would be easy and wound up being more challenging for you?
One thing is that would be easy would be to like show the growth model and people see it and have confidence in it and understand it because we're very conservative when we start to target growth, and that was not is
Mm.
really campaigning for and fighting for my clients was a thing I was not expecting, to be honest, because a lot of them have great brands, most of them have great brands, but the one thing I was able to do is fight for them is because I like with the bakery is knowing they moved a cake 13 times in their
Oh,
old
wow.
space. Like that's not efficient, right?
Yeah.
Getting a basement would able to help them order from different distributors, and like there was a pecan shortage and they were able to hedge, some of their costs, but literally getting a basement saved them 23% off their cost of goods.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
knowing and really getting into their business and understanding their operations, where their pain points are, where their strategies for growth, and how we can kind of amp different revenue sources with how we lay out the building and the development and grow, help me fight for them. And
Okay.
so I wasn't, I like it because it helps me lay out the building and lay out what I call like when I look at a floor plan, I look at cost centers. Like, okay, is this taking money or like giving money, right,
Mm.
to the business?
Okay.
And it's a different way to look at a floor plan, but it really makes your operations efficient. And then one thing I thought that was going to be harder, which that's in quotes, right? It's hard at times is to get the financial sources
Mm.
aligned with businesses and being able to kind of say, hey, we need this. Like when we go into a lot of these communities, they want the business wants to go there, but we have this gap of finance, right? That like the business can only afford so much and this is the cost. And there's so many times when the community and the officials and the mayors and the council people and the city administration have come to the table with solutions
Mm.
that, yes, we project and we ask for a lot, but they'll come with like, okay, or like let's do this or let's do that. And I think it's that team mentality. And I thought that would be harder to build the trust of those relationships. But
Mhm.
I know it's when you're open book, which we are, we show everything. I call it the bathing suit conversation. Women align with a little bit more where you're bearing it all, right?
Yeah.
And we show like, here's where our risk is, here's where like where we're growing, here's how we're projecting. They understand it and they get on your
Mhm.
side and they know it's hard to grow and they want you to grow in their communities. So they want to invest with you. They want to be a partner with you. And that has been the biggest blessing because these are relationships that it's not one project. Then they're like, we
Right.
we know your integrity, we know your mindset. We
Right,
want you to
right,
help us
right.
with
Advisor for
in
the
this
next
one.
project and next one. Yeah, yeah. Threaded in all
Mhm.
of your stories is a level of success or things you failed at it, but then you found out what it was, you turned it around and made it successful. In your eyes, what's your definition of success?
Really, I mean, success for me is sitting at like a ribbon cutting and watching my clients full of joy, full of, oh my gosh, I never thought this would happen,
Mm.
right? And their family and friends enjoying and then watching their businesses grow. Like it is, I mean, I get to watch that. I get to experience it. Amazing because I look at some of the businesses that we helped get into spaces during COVID.
Mhm.
And, one is Hello Headband. They're amazing companies. This woman who was doing it out of her house and her dad came to me and was like, hey, do you have any spaces left? And how everything unfolded. And she
Wow.
literally opened March 2020, which she couldn't even open her store because
Mhm.
of COVID. And she has like 3x, 4x in the last four
Wow.
years, 3 years,
Wow.
her store, and she spun off a different company. And when we first talked, one of her goals was to hire her sister and hire her mom and someday. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that happened within 2 years of
Mm.
her digging in and opening and going back and being like, do you remember we had that conversation? She's like, I was thinking about that. Right.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
that success for me is knowing that somebody else's life and family and business is better because we interacted, because
Yeah.
we engaged in some way. And some, I always, when people come to me, I'm always like, what do you think I do? Because about 80% of what we do, people don't see, right? It's the
Gotcha.
structure, it's
Yes.
the business
Systems and
planning. It's
systems and places behind the scenes. Yeah. Systems and
yeah.
processes behind the scenes. Yeah, I did that for a little bit for another
Yes, yeah,
company. So
especially
I
since
know.
you
Yeah, it's definitely the unsung hero of a business is to get those in place. But boy, once a system and process is in place, that business runs so much more efficiently.
mm,
I heard you mention a few
yeah.
times about the bakery. You want to talk about the
Mm,
bakery story and what
yeah.
what happened there and what are some takeaways you had from that experience?
Yeah, I think that kind of to end with your first thing, begin with your ending question, sorry. What that this process taught me is how much I can advocate for other people.
Mm,
And so I apologize at the beginning working with client. I'm like, I'm going to get into everything. I'm going to get into like, I want to know everything. I'm going to be like, big bear, like the mama, to kind of protect you. And when we first started it, the funny part with the bakery is so Jeff and Martha own bakery. It's Trusker's Bakery in Peoria, Illinois, Peoria Heights. Sorry. They were in Peoria. And the mayor came to us and said, hey, you're doing this development for another client. Like, we want them in the Heights. Would you go talk to them? And so I went and, tried to, go to them, but it's a bakery. So a lot of people are always asking and there's tons of solicitors. And so finally the mayor kept at me and I'm like, if you want me to meet with them, you have to set up the meeting. Like I have tried, I've gone there.
mhm,
And so he did. And I asked them, I'm like, what do you want? Right. I always start with questions. I got to know where you're going because we can guide you wherever you're at, but
yeah.
it's not about me. It's about you, right? It's about your business, your growth. And so when I listened to them, I was like, this is not the right project. Like, and I immediately remember sitting back from the desk. I'm like, mm-mm. And I'm sitting here in the room, right? That I fought for this mayor to introduce me these people to. And I'm sitting here like, this is not in alignment. And I said, and I told the mayor, I like put my hand over here. I'm like, hold on a second. Let me get this out. Don't jump to conclusions. And I said, this project's not for you. This is not for your business. And I said, but there's a building I know that's coming online. It's in the village limits. It's going to be coming on in 2 weeks. I'd love to meet back with you about this, but I want to walk through it with you because you're going to need vision. Because what I said, and this building was the bakery was established in 1861. It was a
Mm,
German owned bakery, and they had
wow.
rented pretty much the whole time. And so the building was actually in 1893, 95. We kind of were fighting for the actual official documents
Mm,
because it was before the village had even been incorporated.
mm,
And and it had good bones, but like any building, it had been abused over time. It had
right.
lead-based paint on the outside, the windows boarded up. And during that 2 weeks, they agreed. And so they came back in that 2 weeks. They came in the door, stand right in my conference room door. They didn't come and sit down. They're like, we know the building. If it's not the right one, if it's not the same one, we're not sitting down. I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting. And so I said, well, you gotta like roll with me on this. Like, give me a second to explain my vision. And they go, okay, what building is it? And I told them, and it was the same one. And they had already walked through it. And they go, what would you do with it? And I
Mm,
talked about like what they told me, right? Listening, truly, truly intently listening to like their pain points in operation. And they said, we want to walk through the building with you. I said, absolutely. I want to walk through your operations first. And they go,
mm.
what? I said, well, I can't walk through the building with you if I don't know what we're dealing with. And so we did, and then we did. And after that,
Wow.
we were really enmeshed. But that project to do a renovation usually costs about 2 to 3 times more
Mhm,
than a new build. And so
mm.
they were, family owned business. And so they wanted to 3x their size, but they really couldn't afford that in their cost. And so we had to figure out, how do we give them 3 times the space for 1.5 times the cost?
Mm.
And so then I went to working with the village and saying, okay, guys, like, what's on the table here? Like, what can we do? And they said, anything and
Mm.
everything. Like, put
Wow.
it together, Katie. We're open to it. And it really allowed me to create. And that's where we
Yeah.
created the 8 financial sources. So they originally were going into the development and like scraping everything. And so saying, hey, we have $50,000 that we can go in this. We brought investors in, we brought SBA in, we brought historic tax
Mm.
credits in, we brought TIF. I mean, 8 sources.
Yeah.
Um, which we did a webinar. We teach people about that, because even, Jeff and Martha were like, we had we had the
Right.
blessing of you taking us through this, but other businesses don't, right? So that's also what I want to help educate, is that there are all these other processes and other people that can help you. We can help you too, but to know that it is possible. And through that way, it was, again, knowing their heart, knowing their intention, what's their
Mhm.
why for the building and the program and all those, the development, that really helped drive us and keep us going through the process. Because you think 8 financial sources, there's a lot of times we got told no by one,
Yeah.
or one adjusted terms, and we had to go back through everybody else. So it was tough. And then, we set it up in a way that was really attractive to a certain investor. So our investors had a great win on that one.
Mhm.
And so did they. And, after 4 years, they refinanced, bought all the investors out. And then we taught them how to manage the building, which is what their ultimate goal was, to, like, do everything themselves. And, we're still good friends to this day. I still stop by and see them, and we hang out. But, that's the amazing part of that journey. And,
Yeah.
all along the way was helping them design the layout of their flow, helping them look at, like, the layout doesn't reflect where you want your revenue to go,
Sure.
so those are some things that, like, even helping them lay out the space so it fits in line with their business plan, and setting up a business plan, because a lot of small business owners don't have that, right? It's here, it's right up here, my
Yeah, yeah,
business plan's
yeah,
right up
yeah,
here, I'll
yeah.
tell you.
That's where mine's sitting
So
right now. I want to start a business right. It's in the head right now. So I have a good friend of mine. She's like, "Yeah, you keep talking about that. So this is gonna happen."
we should just mastermind it. We got to put a date on the calendar. We'll pick your brain.
Yeah. The more I learn about what you do, the more I find that fascinating,
Mm,
because there's so many skill sets involved, and it is taking something that is small. So the small steps, big wins that
mm,
I see that I want to pull out of it is that you are looking for opportunities that give the potential to turn into big things. And in that, we
mhm,
can do that in all aspects of our lives. It's not just in growing businesses. It's not just in helping people achieve their goals. It's by looking at what we want to do in our lives, or coming alongside somebody else and helping them see the small steps that they have to take in order to achieve the big wins that they want. And the other thing that I find fascinating about what you do is that when people are in the midst of something, they don't often see those steps. So you coming
mm,
alongside of them offer them a perspective that they might not see, and it doesn't have to be growing a business. It could just be somebody trying to overcome a challenge. When we come alongside of them and finding those small steps that they need to overcome in order to have that big win. So I think that's really cool about what you do.
mm.
So
Yeah, because like you said, it's because we're not emotionally. I mean, I'm emotionally involved, but on a
right,
different level, right?
right,
And
right.
one of my friend works. She works in HR, and she's like, we talk, and she's like, "Why? How can I get this?" I'm like, "If you were telling me this is exactly what you would say." And she's like, "I know." She's like, "But," I'm like, "But you're emotionally involved,
Right.
right? So it spins, and so that's where, again, that nucleus of people, letting them
Mhm.
in and letting them guide you and instruct you and
Yeah.
help you is really critical, because, like, you talk about those small steps. One of the things, to circle back real quick on the bakery, is the village took a chance, right, to
Yeah.
invest in that and the business. And they actually saw a ripple effect of development of 15 million in the 2 years
Wow.
after the project, and then 35 million in 4 years after it. So creating that, and the
Amazing.
adjacency that you can create
Yeah.
with your business, with your impact, that's something I love to look at too, is like, incorporate that adjacency. Because usually, if you can make it bigger than you, bigger than your business
Mhm.
with those small steps, you're going to have that compound effect. You're going to have that
Yeah.
reverse deal flow, and you're going to have more champions on your team to help build that bigger possibility.
Yeah, that makes sense. Finding the bigger picture and knowing your why behind
Hmm.
it. We didn't even really
Hmm.
talk too much about that, about knowing your why. But I think we kinda did,
Oh,
though. If
yeah.
you know your why, then it helps drive you when it does become challenging,
Hmm.
so that you can stay on track.
Absolutely.
You're doing that for a reason. Katie, I'm enjoying our conversation. I always ask my guests the same 3 questions. So here we go. Please share a book or resource that's had a significant impact on you.
I always give three to any new business owner. So EMIT is always one, compound effect. And now one I'm loving is Unwitting the Devil. It is like mind blowing for me right now.
Unwitting the Devil, is that Napoleon Hill?
Yeah, yeah, it is. I, I'm sad that they didn't release it when he wrote it, but I'm actually glad that they've recently released it.
Mhm,
It
mhm.
it's really about getting out of your own head, like a lot of us do sometimes, because we're so our brain's so powerful, right? And it's so impactful, but it's also it can be a scary place to kind of stay in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next question. What is one question or topic you wish I would have asked about, and how would you have answered the question or expanded on the topic?
Oh, I would say equating this to the creating the why and the passion, the focus,
Mhm.
not only professionally, but how it goes to personally and spiritually. And we talked a little bit about spiritually as well, but personally, one of the things in everything I do, I share with my kids, the projects we're going, I bring them through them. We have nurse wars before we demo a building and our, remodel and stuff. And I bring them along in the experience of what we're doing and teach them to find their passion, right?
Mhm.
To really teach them. So every time I go on vacation, I'm like, that's a job. That's a job. We went to swim with the dolphins. That was a bucket list item
Mhm.
for me this year. And my youngest son was like, that he gets paid, right? Like, so I think he's evaluated like volunteer and paid. And I said,
That's
yeah. And
great.
he goes, how did he get there? I'm like, let's go ask him. He's like, and I'm like, I'll go with you.
How old's your
But
son?
the one I was asking was 12.
Okay, yeah,
And
it's
so,
great. He's a
talking
great
to
mom.
humans, right? But my kids, I make them order at restaurants to the waitress. They gotta, or waiter, they gotta look at the eyes.
Yep,
And so
I did
he
mine
went up and
too,
he
same
talked with
thing.
them. Yeah, right. Like eye contact. And so he's learning like what, and through that and through like answering a couple things. And he wants to be a vet now and he wants a job shadow with that. But looking at what's your passion, and
Mhm.
my 14-year-old's finding a little bit like a little struggle to find his passion. I'm like, you're 14, you got time.
14,
But
yeah.
again, my job as a
Some
mom
don't
and
know
even
at
as a business,
50. You
so
know, it's
yeah, or we reinvent, right? Yeah.
or yeah, that's
But
right, yeah.
yeah, and I do say the grown adults don't know this, Aiden.
Yeah. No,
But
actually, you know what? To go off on a tangent though, you can have
yeah,
different passions. Like your
yes.
passions can be in one direction for a season and then change and
Mm,
go in a different direction depending on where your calling is at that time. And I think that it's an important point to bring up because sometimes we feel like we have to find that one last passion and this is the thing I'm going to do
mhm.
until I die. And you've experienced yourself that the passions can change over time.
Yeah, and yeah, we can pivot, right? And that's why
Mhm.
that going back to those three circles, right? It sounds so simple, but it's not.
Yeah.
And to those conversations with my kids, I'm like, my job as a parent is to expose you to all these opportunities and to try and figure out like what is that passion and pull those things
Mhm.
out. And so in building the course and building the real estate development academy, my oldest was like, I want to learn how to do this. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay.
There you
And
go.
so
Yeah.
we
Perfect.
started to another book I read was What Would the Rockefellers Do? And they talk about family constitutions in there and contracts. And so we started having family health and wealth building meetings each week. And so I teach them a little bit about real estate investing. And then we also plan like our meal plans and like what worked well for us as a family that week. Like what did we like? What did we not like? And sometimes the boys are like, I didn't like how you didn't clean up after yourself, and to their brother and stuff. But it lets them know you need to communicate these things
Yeah.
in a healthy way, right? And so,
And that's
and
teamwork too. That's what a family does. Like you're working
mhm,
together. And it doesn't
yeah,
probably doesn't take that long either, to have those
it's
little
1 hour a week. And before we have it as a standing time, but if, cause they have hockey like every day, all the time. So like if there's something that comes up, we scheduled a different one, different time the next week. And so then the boys started to take a cooking day because they want to learn how to cook and be healthy. And so it's really making me look at like, if my clients needed this and now my family needs this, is this something that other people need, right? And so looking at like, is there a health and wealth building, like homeschool opportunity that we
Yeah.
do kind of thing with it? Because we're all busy people, right? And so we want to give our kids these life skills, right? That I don't feel that a lot of schools are teaching anymore, and so like how do we do it in a way that it doesn't overwhelm us,
Mhm.
and put it together. So i'm,
Just
I'm
incorporating life.
percolating on that.
Yeah. It's just
Hmm.
incorporating life into the flow of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
and
that.
accountability, right? Like
Right.
if
Sure.
somebody says they don't like when you do this, like are you adjusting, are you shifting, and how does that look?
True, true.
Yeah.
And my last question, as we close, what is one small step that someone can do today that's going to help them change their tomorrow?
I would say one small step is sit with yourself and really truly look at your alignment, look at your time, talent, and treasure triangle, evaluate what is pushing and pulling you in life and how you're off.
Mm,
And what would it take if the best question I always ask, if time and money, right? If time and money were not an obstacle, what would you do? And how would you do it? And then a lot of times just write if you're a writer, or like voice note record yourself. Sometimes I go in the woods and record myself talking because I can't write fast enough. But and sit in that and get back in alignment, because that's where you're going to be giving yourself more energy. You're
mhm,
going to have the motivation to get up and do those small steps every single day that are going to compound, and then give yourself permission again to not have it show up until you do the reps, until you do the work,
mhm.
and have people hold you accountable. But sitting in your thoughts is one of the hardest things I find, and that's the best thing to get on that path to focus.
Yeah, that quiet meditation, quiet time. We don't do enough of that because we
Mhm.
always have our screens in front of us.
Yes.
It's
Put the
challenging to
phone
keep
down, go in the
the phone
woods.
down. Yeah, yeah. Unless you get that voice recorder there, and then you have to, like, use
Yeah.
self-control not to look at the phone while you're in the woods.
Yeah.
I
I've
know
learned
exactly
that
what
the
that.
do not disturb and the focus function on my phone is like now becoming an
Actually
addiction,
actually
because
do work. Yeah.
right? Yeah, because like I gotta get
Is it
work done. Like,
isn't that
hold on.
contradictory though, almost? I'm addicted to the focus time on my phone.
Maybe.
That's
Maybe.
crazy. Oh my gosh. Katie, how can people find
Oh,
you?
really easy. KatieKim.com, KatieKim.com, or on most of the socials at the Katie Kim, and the Kim group as well. But Katie Kim will take you to everything you
Oh,
need to know to
perfect.
grow, I guess.
All
There we go.
right, perfect. Well, thank
Yep.
you very much, Katie, for the gift of your time. This has been a fun
Thank you.
conversation. I enjoyed it very much.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me, and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Until next time, love yourself, then love others. Peace.